Let's try this again. Hey guys, I am Tim with Tabletop Terrors, and Facebook it kind of pooped out. I started the stream and it went 3, 2, 1, trying to reconnect. This is Daily Damage. It is a live stream where we basically just kind of give you some advice or tips or talk about what's going on. And I always start this stream with the rundown. And so for today's rundown, I think the main thing I want to focus on is the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group. The Absolute Tabletop Facebook group is an amazing community of sharp, positive gamers. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but there's this thing that kind of started called the Ab-Tab Challenge. And if you're looking to be in some online games, right now is the time. If you're looking to meet and game with some people who are like-minded, and I see this all the time. Hey, I'm looking for games. I can't find a group. Now's the time. There are more interest posts in the group now than I think there ever have been. So, go now and check out the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group. We'll approve you as a member, and you can start posting right away. It's going to be great. So that is the rundown. We're going to talk about some naval combat rules. We're going to talk about the way that we're going to work these rules into the Ab-Tab Challenge, and we're going to talk about getting as many people to play in some of our games as possible. We're going to talk about all that. But first, as always, I want to go to the chat. Josh Glisson is here. Garth is here. Chris Wilhelm is here. Chris Wilhelm says there are almost a dozen Ab-Tab Challenge posts. And he did. He says, very cool. I always post games in Ab-Tab, but it's great to see more. Exactly. And Chris is so right on. He posts a ton of games. There are a few people who consistently post games in that group. I love that group because it's very difficult to find a genuinely positive online community anywhere. And to me, the Absolute Tabletop group is that. It fosters creativity. It fosters kindness. I love the group. The people in that group are second to none, in my opinion. And so I love the culture of it. So if you're looking for a place that'll accept you for who you are and a place where you can just throw ideas out there, it's very common in that group for someone to throw up a picture and say, hey, who is this person? And, what's their story? And then 7 or 10 or 12 people respond with just a bunch of cool ideas. So anyway, before we get into all of that, Kyle Swanson is here. DBJ is here. Garth says, hey, the Ab-Tab group is most definitely an awesome group. Awesome. And Josh Glisson says, sup. But before we jump into all that, I want to kind of tell you guys about something cool that we have cooking. We didn't want to announce it until it was a little more formal. The release date is not firm yet, but you probably have been wondering, well, why haven't we seen any Destroy Artifact podcasts lately? Well, for 2 reasons. One, we've been planning a pretty big next episode. So the next episode of Destroy Artifact is going to be a live YouTube stream where you can actually join in, and we're going to be interviewing a well-known Marvel Comics artist. So we've been really wanting to line that up as our next episode, and I think we're also going to be doing podcasts in sort of seasons so that they don't get stale or fall off, like what happened to Charm Monster and what happened to Damage Reduction and that kind of stuff. I think we're going to do them in seasons of like 5 or 6 episodes so that we can kind of go on a stint, do a bunch of Destroy Artifact, and then that gets a rest for a little while, and then we do some Charm Monster, and then that gets a rest for a little while, and then we do some Damage Reduction, and then that gets a rest for a little while. So I think that this is going to be the Season 1 Damage Reduction finale, where we're going to interview live, and you can ask your questions. We're going to talk about the creative process and destroy artifacts with a famous Marvel Comics writer. So we're pretty stoked about that. Let's see here. Spencer Shields is here. Shields of War. Garth says, I'm glad to see a shift. I think we needed an incentive to shift the group culture from just shared creativity to one of shared gaming experience. Props for the challenge. I totally agree with that, and I hope that it doesn't stop. In fact, like I said, I'm calling it now. At least two campaigns are going to grow out of this, I think. Chris Wilhelm says, that's exactly why I post here. The culture is great, and I never have drama. Exactly. It's drama-free, man. It's wonderful. Melvin is here. What's up, dude? Chris Wilhelm says, seasons is a good idea. It will keep your brain fresh, too. Exactly. That's the other thing, is that when you have, like, 4 or 5 podcast topics you can do, it's like, well, where's damage reduction? It's like, well, it's not, that season's over, but hey, this season is next. And if you kind of do them in that rotation, then we're good to go there. Kyle Swanson says, sorry, tuning in a little late. Oh, that's okay. But great to see a lot of the games in the group. Beautiful. He says, yeah, I agree with the seasons. It's good to get breaks and refresh the creativity. I also like the idea, too, that you can kind of direct the focus a little bit. Like Season 2 of Destroy Artifact might be specific to, one particular thing. Like maybe making a supplement from beginning to end. And we kind of talk about the pitfalls we're having as we write Dead Man's Guide or something. But that brings me on to this. So, Alex Knight says, can I get a shout out? Tabletop Terrors are the best. Alex Knight, shout it out. Shout it out, shout it out, Alex Knight. Alex Knight. Arch nemesis to Alex Day. Opus Day. What? What is the thing? Spencer Shields. He says, you're damn right I'm here, brother. All right. There's one final thing, and then I promise we're going to talk about naval combat rules here and how that's going to play out in Absolute Creativity. But there's something I want to announce that I'm pretty excited about. If you know of the channel Drunkens and Dragons, and you know Hankering for an Ale, then you know that we recently did a collaboration, and we did what we called Channel Invasion, where he did a video for our channel, and we did a video for his channel. It went very well. And we found, dude, Hankering and the Brothers Terror, we get along really well. So, we've been kind of working on this behind the scenes, making it happen, lining up schedules. And I can say that it's official. The release date has not been decided because we're kind of taking it easy as far as what we do. But you are going to see an official collaboration, consistent and ongoing, between Tabletop Terrors and Drunkens and Dragons called The Encounter Machine. The Encounter Machine is going to be a podcast that we do together where we take the crazy sort of splat book roulette, improv, creativity concepts of Tabletop Terrors, and you mash it up with the streamlined, super awesome encounter designs of Hankering for an Ale, and you join those together, and that is going to be Encounter Machine. And every episode is going to be one awesome encounter that you can drop into your tabletop game. And so that is what it's going to be. And so we're happy to announce that. Like I said, it's forthcoming. We're doing it as we can. We're kind of just like, hey, but the framework has been laid. Everything is good, man. We've been talking a lot, did a Google Hangout, and it's firing on all cylinders. So keep an eye out for the Encounter Machine. It's going to be a podcast with Hankering for an Ale and Tim and James Carney with Tabletop Terrors. Let's talk about some naval combat rules. Let's talk about some AbTab challenge. So here's what I want to do. I want to tell you a little bit about what the AbTab challenge is, and then I want to tell you a bit about how we can work these naval rules into things. The AbTab challenge is something that grew out of a video from Drake Warren of the RPG Construct. He did a response video to a video I did about bullying, and then he basically was like, hey, let's take what Tim said a step further. Let's not just be a part of the community with each other, but let's really stretch ourselves and try to expand who we game with. So the point of this, the AbTab challenge, is try to run games and play in games with people who you don't normally game with. Because it is easy. It's easy for me, because here's the other thing. I consider my gaming group. I don't have an IRL gaming group. 1v1 me IRL. Spencer Shields. No, I don't know. My gaming group is Nate Vanderzee of WASD 20, Barker from Be a Better Game Master, Matt Click, James, Cassie. That's my gaming group. So when I say, hey, I want to run a game, I go to them like you would go to your physical gaming group. I do play in some other games, and I do run games for some other people, but rarely. So this is a push to get more experience just going, hey, let's run a game. Let's have some fun. Let's just like rock and roll all night and party every day. And so what I want to do, my version of doing this is, my schedule is weeknights. I basically work on AbTab stuff weeknights from 10 p.m. to about midnight. So I could easily run a nice little 2-hour encounter / mini adventure. For me, I think I want to use these naval combat rules. And basically, the way that the naval combat rules work at a very high level, it's very simple and streamlined, but you build a ship in a similar fashion as you would build a character. It's like the diet version of building a character. So when you build a ship, you select the kind of ship, and then you select, and there are some different in-game terms, but you basically select the ordnance, which is the weapons. You select your, I forget what it's called. It's notoriety, which is what you're good for, like you, your captain, and your crew. What are you good at? And basically, when you choose those things, it gives you in-game abilities as a ship. So you build your ship, and the rules are much more detailed than this and specific, but they're easy, they're lean. It's not like learning a whole different set of rules, and that's really why we made this, because there are at least 2 fully written, very detailed sets of D&D 5th edition naval rules. I do not want to disparage anybody, but they all feel like Pathfinder. They are very good, but it becomes very difficult to play that kind of a game, theater of the mind. It becomes very difficult to play that style of game because it incorporates so many new mechanics, like sails and wind and things that are cool for like naval, but it's like, nope. In the same way that when I'm running a combat theater of the mind, I'm not worried about the environment outside of narrative and specific challenges, then we're not doing all that stuff. So essentially, the ship has this ability, instead of dex, it's like your ship's dexterity, it's just called maneuverability. That's it. Aside from that, it's pretty much like real combat. It's just normal. We use some stuff from the Dungeon Master's Guide to make it so that you can't just run up to a ship and hit it with your sword and sink it. Basic stuff that's already existing. But once you kind of get the gist of it, it's like, okay, I'm going to build my ship. Now, here's what's cool. You have a round where the ships go. And this is also where I think vehicle combat falls flat. A lot of times, there have to be these crazy, like, hanging Chad rules because you can't have a tank or a boat on a battle mat because it's like, well, it's too big. Where do I, so what we've done is we've come up with a system to kind of handle that. We've also come up with a system to where all the ships go at the beginning of the initiative order. Then the players act as normal. They use the ship as an environment. We think that that's key. So it doesn't become a boat fighting game. It becomes a boat fighting game, and whoever is the captain gets to steer the ship. Where is it going? It goes boom, boom, boom. It goes here. And the rules are very clear, and they detail this whole thing out. But the ship moves, boom, boom, boom. And then on the ship, the players can go, hey, I want to do X. Hey, I want to do Y. I want to do this. Oh, goblin pirates. All right, let's fight them. And it's normal combat. Then the ship moves, boom, boom, boom. And so we think it's cool. We think it's actually turning out well, but it needs to be play tested. It needs to be finessed. And this is where you come in. I want to run a series of games where everyone who is interested can join the playtest group, and you get a copy of these rules. They're, like I said, they're very basic. If you understand normal D&D5E combat, you kind of just look at the differences, and it's like, oh, it clicks like that. But then we run some of these, and we just have fun, and we just flesh out the area. There's this area in Dragon Grin. It's like the Erazios Islands and this place called Awai. That's where your high adventure lives. That's where you're like Jack Sparrow and you're like that is where that stuff lives. And so we want to see what you come up with. Let's build some ships. Let's fight some ships. You'll need a character too. So I don't want it to take too long. I don't care if you use pre-gens. That's totally fine. But that is the idea. That is what I want to do for my AbTab challenge, and I want to just pick people. Now, I know it could be sort of limiting, where it's like, hey, Tim, you can only play weeknights after 10. Unfortunately, yes, but I plan on doing this for a while. Now, I might not do it every week, but I'd like to. I like to just keep it relaxed, keep it chill. These games will be recorded. They'll be broadcast. I might record them privately and then broadcast them later. I don't know. But the idea is that I want to throw this out there. Now, if you're watching this and you're not a part of the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, you're like, well, how do I become a part of this? Well, you can still be a part, but it's more difficult. So it's the best way to do this is to join the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group and post on my interest post. If you don't want to do that, it's kind of against the nature of the AbTab challenge, but if you don't want to do that, you can send me an email, playtest@tabletopterrors.com, and we can talk about working something out. I'm going to go to the chat in 1 second, but I want to mention one thing, and this is very important. This is for our company. So the playtest involves signing a non-disclosure agreement. You basically say, hey, I'm not going to share this around. I'm not going to tell other people that aren't part of the playtest anything outside of what would be on a live stream. You know, we want to playtest these rules, make sure they're great before we release them. So that is required. If you want to play in these, it's unfortunate some people don't feel comfortable signing it. Basically, it's just saying you're not going to give our stuff to someone who's not a part of the playtest. So, hey, Matthew Carney joined. That's my brother. He actually was just on the Offhand Attack on Sunday, and then we recorded a video with him, and that should go up probably this weekend. Let's see here. Man, I'm way behind in the chat. Holy Shamolian. All right, hold on. I'm way back. Hassan is here. Yeah, Naval Combat. Alan Holloway is here. Nathan Likes says the Creativity Podcast is fantastic also. Thank you, man. Josh Glisson says, I think I'll plan on playing in an online game before the next Brigade Con. Full of ideas, but not a whole lot of experience with RPGs. And none really in 5e, just 2nd and 3.5. I plan on a lot, though, so who knows. Here's the other thing. To speak specifically to what Josh is saying, you guys in the AbTab group, I'm telling you, dude, Josh, just jump in. There are so many people who are ready to teach you 5e, and if you know 3.5, you already know 5e. You just need to get a couple of gotchas out of the way. Like, what's the surprise round? Oh, it works like this? Things like that. Just a little recalibration, and you're in. You're playing 5e. It's so intuitive. So please jump in. Don't let the fact that you can't play stop you at all. Oh, man. Kyle Swanson says, the encounter machine. I love it. Dude, yeah. Super stoked about it. Nathan Like. Hankrin is hilarious. He is hilarious. Dude is... I don't know, man. We could be related, is what we're learning. Garth says the collaboration was awesome, and I think the idea of uniting your approaches to content is great. Thanks, man. We think it's going to be really cool. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, we're just having a good time with it. Like I said, it's kind of in the future here, but we're working on it actively, so you're going to be seeing that soon. Rob Coletta here, my Dungeon Master from the Lore Keepers game, which, by the way, we're going to be playing again the first Sunday of December, so you need to check out Performance Check's YouTube channel so you can see the third session of the Lore Keepers. Alan Holloway is here. I mentioned Hassan. Jeremy Lilly is here. Michael Shields, a lot cooler than I thought it would be. Cool. That's cool. Good. Chris Willem says, mine for the most part. I'm really hoping we can get some other games for beginners as well. I might do Legend of the Five Rings since I missed the Brigade Con deadline. That's not a bad idea. Get people involved in some newer systems. This is the time. Because honestly, as a game master, look, I'm guilty. I'm like, I want to run the best game that's ever been run. Ever. And, so you pick players that you know your playstyle gels with. This is the bottom line, and I love this, what the AbTab Challenge is doing. The bottom line is that 4 hours of my life is very valuable to me. And it's not a matter of whether you're a good role player or a bad role player or inexperienced. It's a matter of taste. I'm not going to take somebody who I barely know to a 4-hour heavy metal concert if I know they're going to hate it. So it's a matter of testing out, and we've all been there. You're like, yeah, I'll play in your game. And then you get in there and you're like, this is so much different than I imagined. O-M goodness. I'm Tim Clawhauser. The AbTab Challenge takes that, it cuts its head off, and it says, into the ravine. Who cares? Let's hang out for 4 hours. It's about the people. It's about trying new play styles. It's about trying new systems. It's about not worrying that my narrative is complete. It's saying, hey, you want to do something fun? You want to get to know each other better? All right, cool. And doing things you might not necessarily normally do. I see a lot of people who like one style of rule sets. There was even just a great post yesterday. Rules light, narrative heavy, or narrative light, rules heavy. What's the blend? What's best? What's good? I think that this is a good way to kind of push into that. Gar says, I'm happy to see the naval content finally C-ready. Yeah, man, it's whoa, it's halfway there. Whoa, living on a prayer. Chris Williams says you should run Riptide Raid with the new rules. Just change it to a sea battle instead of sneaky mission. Would be cool. There has been talk of specifically releasing, basically, and who knows what we were calling it, maybe like Revenge of the Riptide Raid, where it's exactly that, and it's both of them combined. Essentially, it's, hey, here's the map, here's the Riptide, here's the sneaky mission, and then once you steal the vessel, the second half of the book or the PDF or the second part would be the naval battle. Like, okay, you stole this pirate ship, now what are you going to do with it? Chris Williams said, it's like a lair action. I like that. Dude, you know what? I didn't even think of it that way, but that's exactly what it's like. Jeremy Lilly said, it's awesome to see more names popping up across the board within the group. I totally agree. There was someone yesterday who said, hey, I've been in this group a long time, but I've never posted. And I think this is sort of breaking that. It's like, you're automatically a part. You're automatically an equal. You don't have to, have been around since we started the group or whatever. You're a part. You're family. Rob Coletta says, can you call one of the maneuvers the Picard after the Next Generation warp trick? Yes, and we will be sued by Paramount. Post haste. Dirk Van Claveren. I want to playtest this. I've been looking into naval combat and making it my own for an aerial combat game. James Carney's here. So let me talk about this specifically. If you followed what we're doing with Absolute Tabletop, if you followed on our channel, we have this thing called damage reduction, and we were talking about something called Harbinger. Harbinger is Matt Click's brainchild. It is a fantasy sci-fi, like Warhammer meets Star Wars meets our own brand of nasty. And these naval combat rules being streamlined and released for 5e is going to be the precursor to your ship rules for your sci-fi space stuff in Harbinger. So it's imperative that we get these rules high and tight, because right now there's only 2 axes of movement. And by adding that extra axis, so the Harbinger rules will have X, Y, and Z axis. Now I know that technically that's how there already are those things in D&D, but these naval rules are specifically written so that the ship stays in the water or runs aground. There's no flying ships yet. But once we get these rules, lean, mean, and seafoam green, then we can say, okay, now how do these ships fly? And a flight speed versus a water speed and that kind of stuff. So, yes, Dirk, you will see that. You will see what I believe are streamlined, easy-to-use naval combat rules, and then you'll see the next iteration and evolution of those in Harbinger, where it's like, because who doesn't want to be a treader, which is like a bounty hunter, like ranger class in Harbinger? Who doesn't want to be a treader, like a Boba Fett hopping into Slave 1? Or like Early from Firefly, who just, a bounty hunter needs a ship, and it's got to be standing up. It's got to look like a bowling pin upside down. That's just the rules. I didn't write these rules. This is how it works. But, yes, you will see those kinds of things. Shout out to James Carney, who friggin' makes our website work. Like, I was just thinking about this last night. James has one of the most thankless jobs in Absolute Tabletop because he only gets pinged if it breaks. Like, hey, James, can you put this Dragon Grin t-shirt up? Yes. Okay, it's up. Thanks, man. Meanwhile, it's working perfectly. People are buying their shirts. It's all good. You know he gets a text. I'm like, yo, man, the website's broken. So it's like, in James's world, sometimes he only hears from me if something breaks. And I was like, I got to stop doing that because he does so much and works hard. So thank you, James Carney, for being the tech side. He also keeps me grounded. We've been around that. The Picard involves 5 casters using the teleport in conjunction to Misty Step the ship. That's what Chris Wilhelm says. So that's another thing we need to add. There are, right now, I'm working on arcane elements to the ships and how far you want to take that. And using things like that, where you could replace a weapon with sort of a teleportation engine. It would be very expensive, but essentially using it a lot like a spell, like Chris is saying. So instead of needing to have 5 and 10 and 7 and 12 mages, because we want the players to be able to do whatever they want to do on the ship. It's key that the naval combat doesn't consist of, okay, stand there. Okay, what do you do next? Okay, you shoot the cannon. All right, your turn's over. You can do that if you want, but the ship has to be able to move. It has to be able to do its thing, and so that I would love it to where, if, like, I imagine this sphere, kind of floating a foot off of a pillar that's just like glowing, this glowing sphere of like liquid purple metal or something, and essentially it's a teleportation orb, and you can use it once, and when you do, it like solidifies into this really tiny, like rock hard, like smaller sphere, and then it slowly grows outward, and that's how you know it's recharging. You know, the cooldown meter. Jeremy Lilly. So I'm assuming that there are to be, excuse me, cannons in Dragon Grin. Otherwise, naval combat certainly loses something. There will definitely be cannons. In fact, we were even talking about in Dragon Grin, there would be small firearms. They're just usually not worth it. The price to upkeep them and bullets and how unreliable they can be. In fact, this naval playtest is part of a larger supplement we wanted to release that has a ton of pirate stuff. Awesome ship generators, like firearms, weapons, like all this kind of stuff in there, which we plan on releasing. But yes, there are cannons. Yes, there are cannons. There are going to be gunpowder cannons. There are also going to be like magic missile cannons, essentially, you know, but they won't automatically hit. So we got to, again, tweak all that. But yes, there will definitely be cannons. Garth says, I'm down to host or play in a naval playtest. Perfect. Yeah, that's it. The only thing we need is to make sure everybody's in the playtest group. And in fact, if you're already in the playtest group and you can put an interest post up in there if you want to. Or you can wait until we kind of start hammering some stuff out and go for it. Kyle Swanson, I'd be interested in the naval playtest. Alex Knight says, this sounds incredibly fun. I think so too. I think it sounds like it would just be a blast, because the other thing about naval combat is when I think naval combat, I don't want it to be hyper realistic. I want it to be rule of cool, cinematic. I think high adventure. I think Master and Commander, Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't think 5-hour games where it's like a bunch of math, and so it's like it shouldn't be called naval combat and then play out like an old Avalon Hill game. Nothing against Avalon Hill, but that's not what I want, especially if I'm playing this Theater of the Mind. So yeah, it has to be fun, and that's what we wanted, something that's lean enough and flexible enough so that you could still play at Theater of the Mind, but keep everyone engaged so that it feels like a naval battle without clamping a bunch of rules that weigh it down to it. Sean is here. Rob Coletta says, or a major image spell to make the ship appear in 2 places at once. Either is valid and perfect. Dude, all of that stuff we want to add in there. The arcane element is going to come next. And because of the way we've designed the rules, it should be relatively easy to implement that kind of stuff and keep it balanced. Jacob Norman is here. Chris Wilhelm says, Tim, I wouldn't mind running a naval encounter if you're cool with it. I already have the NDA, but we can update it if needed. No, dude, that'd be great. If you're in the playtest group, in fact, there are a couple people, so Garth and Chris, what I'll do is I'll message you two, and we'll kind of work something out. I think it is imperative that 2 other or more game masters run this, because they have to be clear in your mind. The rules, as written, need to be clear. And by you guys going through it and then running it for other players, that's how you find whether or not there are holes in it. I can run it, but if I run it, which I will, what I'll do is I'll fill in gaps in my mind. When you hand it to another game master, when they start asking questions, you want to see if the game master can intuitively answer and what kind of questions the players ask. And I like that. I like that you would have to say, well, as written, it's this. Or, hey, Tim, we had questions. Because I would just fluff it or come up with something or like, hey, let's do this. So I think that'd be brilliant. I really love that. Matthew Carney says, hiya! Dude, it was really awesome having my brother on and filming a video with him. And we're prepping for a home campaign we're going to run. And it's awesome, dude. It's going to be great. We were thinking of having him on again and have him start making a character like we did with our mom. Kind of have everyone who's going to be in the campaign on. Pick their character concept, kind of pick, etc. And then probably not go through the whole character creation process with all of them, but especially go through the character creation process with my mom. That's going to be a blast. But, yeah, we're going to run a Dragon Grin campaign for my family, and I'm excited about that. Jeremy Lilly says, I played in a game once where a clever player summoned a wall of force just above the waterline immediately in front of a ship that was booking it. Oh, dude, that's insane. That's really wicked. Chris Wilhelm says, Rob, Mirage Arcana would be cool for it. Spot on, Chris, says Rob. Sean says, yeah, I've been looking to see this played since I saw it in the AbTab playtest group. Yeah, it really kind of fell by the wayside because other projects took precedence. I won't go into the whole diatribe, but it was like, okay, let's do Stone Rift, let's focus on Brigade Con, and get the books print on demand ready. So really, and we had a ton to redo on Copper Jackals just to make sure it was. We reworked the whole boon section so that it's much easier to use, it's much cleaner, it's everyone's feedback we implemented. So yeah. Jacob Norman, how feasible would it be to think of airship combat as a variant of the naval combat rules? I mean, a lot of the ship outfitting would work. You add up and down its maneuvers, and falling overboard is more deadly. That's essentially what we're going to do. The main thing you have to do, and this is just kind of thinking what I've thought and haven't come up with the rules yet for, you have to make it simple. It can't be a bunch of rules and limitations, but you also have to make it so that you decide how high the ship can go and how fast. So essentially, you have to decide airspeed and how you're going to work with that, which isn't terrible, but you also need to decide if there are rules for if a ship goes into outer space. How is a flying ship fueled? Do you track that? Is it not tracked? So those are things you need to consider, whereas like for naval combat, typically it's oars and sails and stuff like that. So, and if it's magic, it's not that it's going to be difficult to do, but also playtesting it, especially with theater of the mind, keeping that straight in your head. If the rules aren't clear and tight and streamlined, it will be a nightmare of positioning and reach and how far are you and thinking of a 3D space. So it's essentially going to be the exact rules with a couple of add-ons to say, hey, here's X, here's Y. But we feel that it's important to make sure that these rules are as tight as they can be, because the airship rules are a variant of these. So that's what we're thinking. So it's not going to be crazy difficult. It's just, okay, get these as good as they can be, get them really good, and then say, okay, this works, this is perfect and streamlined. Now let's add another axis and a couple of flavorful things so that a ship can be flying, essentially. Tim, did you catch the Magisterium game? It was a lot of fun. I did not catch that game. It is on my watch later list. That game and like, you know why I haven't watched it yet too, is because there are like several BrigadeCon things I'm trying to catch up on that I'm trying to, like, I don't want to forget about them or miss them. So I'm guessing there was air combat, like naval combat. Stephen Back is here. What's going on, you skinny pirate? He says, I keep arriving late. Let's see. Matthew Carney says, ha ha, misjudged. Say it to my face, Matt. Say it to my face. Galileo, what the? Jeremy Lilly. I said it in the playtest group, but I want to echo it here. I really think that mining the game Pirates of the Spanish Main for ideas may be worthwhile. It was a game where you build miniature ships and they have different stats and things, but then having certain crew on board give additional benefits. I would love to do that. Where do I get this game? Do I have to purchase the ships? Do I get the rules? So I also, I don't know. Like, I think that's a good idea, and it's not. I'll consider that. I'll definitely consider that. Also, when coming up with stuff, we try not to look at other things that are so specifically the same and go, hey, let's, but you're right, though. Are we close in concept, at least? Jacob Norman says there's an old Dungeon magazine one-shot called Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship Gambit. That can also be dropped in a naval combat scenario. Dude, Heroic Maps. Our buddies over Heroic Maps, Joe and Sarah, just came out with 2 ships. It's going to be perfect. They came out with 2 ships for Halloween, and they're like these spectral ships. One of them is a legit ghost ship, and the other one is a sunken ship. And it is awesome. And I would love to... And that's the thing. This isn't in the playtest rules, but there's a whole list. There's like a D20. It might even be a D50, like D100 table, of like unique ships. Like just crazy concepts for ships that you can then just plug in. Yeah, I won't even try to remember some of them right now because they're kind of difficult to remember. But dude, it's going to be really cool. Once we get this nailed down, it's going to be awesome. James Carney says, Jeremy, I remember that game. That's a great idea. And it is. And James, I actually think I have some of those unopened packs. They were like little cardboard ships. I really wish it took off more because we used to play HeroClix a lot, and we kind of just, I was going to say we kind of didn't ever get huge into that game. But you know what my favorite part was, James, about Pirates of the Spanish Main? You know what it was. Those tiny dice. The tiniest dice you've ever seen in your life. They were these itty-bitty little D6. It was crazy. Stephen Back. I signed up for my first online game because of the AbTab challenge. That is awesome. Dude, that's great. So, I don't want to drag this out. I want to make sure you all know that I love you spending time with me. And I especially am excited to run some playtesting. So if you want to be a part of this, join the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group. Go find it now. Go join. And then I have an interest post in there, and it's called Pirates of the Shattered Seas, 40 Fathoms of Dragongrin. And that's kind of the, canopy, the umbrella that we're going to use to run all of these games. And I thought it'd be fun to come up with, like, different little mini encounter names. Now, all the scenarios will be, it's going to be like something interesting happening on the ships, and then the ships moving and fighting themselves. So you'll need a character, probably level 3 is a good sweet spot. And then from there, it's going to be ships fighting, and then interesting things happening. So you'll probably all, like if I have 4 players, they'll be on one ship, and then I'll play the NPC ships that are trying to catch you or escort you or blow you up or whatever the case is. Tyler Hurst, what's up, man? Alan Holloway, are you going to allow gunpowder weapons, flintlocks, grenades, cannons? Yes, especially for the pirate stuff. They're not prevalent in all of Dragongrin, but it's definitely part of the flavor. I think you lose something, which was mentioned earlier in the chat. I think you lose something pretty pivotal when you take away that element Steven says, I can't wait for Harbinger. Yeah, man. And then James said, Steven, that's awesome, about signing up for the game. Tyler Hurst, Lean Mean and Seafoam Green. Tim Carney, 2016. That's right. Beautiful line of poetry. Chris Wilhelm says, oh God, Seafoam Green nightmares. It was one of only 2 paint colors on the submarine. Oh no. I'm so sorry. And then Jeremy says, oh, and I know it isn't strictly related to RPGs, but you should also read Michael Crichton's last book, Pirate Latitudes. Great fodder for pirate-themed mayhem and ship combat. Michael Crichton is the author that I read the most in middle school up into my first years of high school. I read as many of his books as I could get my hands on because he just had such good high concepts. Like things that are now cliche or things that have become tropes, Michael Crichton invented so many of them. Like he was the first one to say, hey, you know what? And popularize it. So that's actually something I'll check into because I love me a good Crichton book. It was so bummed out when he passed. Dirk says, awesome. I have so many ideas. I have a collection of different franchises that have aerial combat, and I super want to put that into a campaign. Dude, yeah, I think it's going to work out really well. Alex Knight said, ooh, maybe a spell that gives the ship a distortion field like a displacer beast. Dude, exactly. And that's the other cool thing, is that you can come out with errata for this and update packs all day. Like, hey, get your munitions, and just put it on the site, and hey, here it is. Guard says, hey, got a peace out for my night here, but I'll watch you later. Jeremy Lilly says, once a ship is boarded, the combat should be fairly standard and straightforward, I would think. So it's nice to put the focus on what happens with ship to ship. And maneuvering and range and facing is such a huge part of that. You're going to be bummed out, but the facing doesn't matter. Just like it doesn't in 5e. We decided that early on because I know that is a huge part of naval combat. Broadsiding and all this other stuff. But we wanted to keep the flavor of 5e. So that is covered. Your maneuverability, that dex modifier we talked about, covers all of that. How you're facing and how you want to be facing is part of your move. It's part of your flavor. It's part of your narrative. Because that was an entirely new, separate thing that is not present at all in 5e. It doesn't exist. So you're talking about taking this big thing that they purposefully omitted from the game and putting it in there for naval combat. I know that some people are going to be sad about that, but it's the same way I think that people were sad about a lot of things in 5e until they played it at the table. And then they're like, okay. So you can use facing. You can talk about it, you can use it, but a ship, just like a player, has a radius and a movement and a threat range and a range for their munitions. I think this is really key because that's what makes it feel a lot more like Pathfinder, is that, okay, you're facing this way, especially Theater of the Mind, and then add 3 axes, X, Y, and Z, and where are you facing? It's more unwieldy than what we're looking to do. So hopefully you won't be super bummed, but facing, just like facing in a battle, there's a disengage action, there's all that stuff, but it's like on your turn, your maneuverability, your actual move is just like, okay, I get up to the ship, and then just like you would in a Theater of the Mind game where you're playing and so on, it's rare that you say, am I behind him? Am I next to him? And it plays in mechanically. So yeah, hopefully people won't be too bummed out, and once they see it in action, because we played some light play tests with it, it's super lean, and it keeps it fast-paced, and it's pretty awesome, I think. Chris says, that works out great since Stratmere is so naval-intensive. I've been avoiding it for a bit because I wanted it to be more narrative than what Wizards of the Coast has put out. Exactly, and I think we're onto something with these. Josh says, looking at it to see if I'm legally able to sign it. NDAs. As a federal employee, I can't sign, but I think it's only if an official capacity. Got to check, not going to jail or getting fired for you. Hey, fair enough. Unless a boatload of money is involved. Well, there will be boats, and there will be boats that are loaded, but probably not with real money. Yeah, check on that, man, and we can talk offline. Let me know what you can do. We'll figure it out. Jake says, oh yeah, my big craft build I'm working on for over the winter is a pirate cove. Multiple ships, and one of them is huge, multiple levels that separate, and just happens to be based on the same heroic map model as the Riptide Raid. So yeah, we're actually, behind the scenes, when these are done, we're working with Jake, and you know what? Listen, I'm famous for writing checks that we then need to cash. So this is not that. This is just an idea. I'm not committing to this. I do not have my checkbook out. Chris Wilhelm, be my witness. This is not a check. This is an idea. Jake, you have mentioned that you would be interested in creating a set piece if, capital I, capital F, if we do meet this coming year in Seattle for the first AtCon, where we get together as AbTab and we game. This would probably be a cool one to use if that happens. Some naval games using the ships in the Pirate Cove. You're already building it, so I'm throwing that out there as a seed, as a concept. Not a commitment, not an uncashed check, but I think it's a cool idea if you'd be interested in talking about that. Michael Shield says, no, not more of you. Dirk says, I once played a spell slinger that can turn his flintlock rifle into a magical siege cannon. Mind construct, Green Lantern style. Dude, that's awesome. Chris Wilhelm, is Harbinger starships, or starships, are they space boats? The tech level in Harbinger is going to be interesting. They're not space boats, but they're also not faster than light travel starships. It's sort of like they are space vessels. So that's kind of the tech level. I know that that's an in-between answer, but they're not going to be boats like Spelljammer. It's going to be vessels, but they're probably not going to look just like your standard class. It's not going to look like X-Wings flying around. We want to make it dangerous and visceral and very, you know what it'll probably be more like? Well, first of all, I think Matt Click would be the best person to ask for some concept art on what he's thinking. But I think it'd be more like Firefly than it would anything else. Now, there's probably going to be Star Wars elements and things like that as well. Oh, Chris, I was asking him about the game, the Magisterium, on Performance Checks channel. He said, no, Rob put a great ship siege scene in right at the beginning that you might like. That sounds awesome. Be a better shipmaster. James said the dice were so tiny. Oh, it's so true. In the little baby dice. Lewis Coombs is here. What's up, man? Steven says, I totally want to see what you did with Naval. I've had to do a bunch in 5e, and it's wonky as heck for that exact reason. Dude, I think we've figured it out. Like I said, I don't want to toot our own horn too quickly, because there are still... The main thing I want to balance are the abilities for the ships, the weapons, the munitions, how the hit points work, but we have a good, solid chunk in place, and I want to start this next week. Note to self, figure out how to safely transport multiple foam crafts to Seattle. Jake, get on it, baby. Lewis Coombs, thinking swashbucklers and boarding parties. Exactly, dude. We used to play, and maybe this is what you meant, Broadsides and Boarding Parties was this incredible game that we used to play with our dad. We need to play that. I don't know if we have a copy anymore. Stephen Back says, pack them and ship them before you leave via UPS or whatever. So anyway, the naval combat rules are in a place where they need to be tested. We want you to test them. Go to the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group right now. Join. Find the interest post. Or you can email playtest@tabletopterrors.com if you're interested and you aren't on Facebook or whatever. This is going to be awesome. We are going to get so many people involved. How would this stuff interact with the players on the ship, says Lewis. It's all in the rules, man. It's pretty interesting. It's cool. I am interested to get your thoughts. I'm interested to get everybody's thoughts because there are some really sharp minds in this group. And if you're watching this, because I put these on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, I want to be a part of this, but you don't know us, you've never reached out, you're just a lurker, this is your opportunity. I don't have to know you. Just hop in. Come on in. Chris Wilhelm, have you thought about designing them like submarines or even a ship from Star Trek Enterprise? If you don't like the series, I think it's pretty realistic the way larger starships could be done. Tight, cramped, and utilitarian. I think they're going to be... See, I leave this entirely up to Matt. Anything I say right now is uninformed guessing. If I had to guess, though, I would say the tech level wouldn't be that refined. Think fantasy in space. Think Warhammer 40K meets Star Wars meets D&D. You know, that fantasy element. Like, so while there would be space vessels, I don't know that there would be like Federation class ships. And maybe if there were in some of the powerful septs, that would be a huge boon for them. Josh Glisson, military vehicles are built for their job, not for human comfort. That's a really good point as well. I'm going to call it here, guys. You're amazing. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on Facebook, I get this question once a week. When will I know when you go live? I typically post in some various groups, but it's important that somewhere down there in the chat for you, somewhere, it'll say, like, notify me. And that means that it will tell you when I go live or when James goes live or whatever. Make sure you push that for AbTab and make sure you push that for Tabletop Terrors. But let's be pirates. Hey, James, I'm a pirate. Man, dash roll high.